Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Premarket Prep session for April 19th, 2024. I'm happy to get into it. Feel like I've been on a nice little, roll, right, in the morning. Feeling good, executing, getting things done, parsing through this market, right, seeing what we got going on. We've had a power-packed week, a lot to break down, and we've got even more to come, right? So we've got more action-packed events happening in markets where we can kind of go parse through, unpack, see where things are headed, what's going on. We've got a lot of news happening, right? I woke up and they're like, oh, there was an escalation or some other strike that happened in the Middle East overnight. And then there's another group that's like, oh, this is fake news. So welcome to 2024, baby. You wake up, you have access to every bit of information under the sun, and you're just trying to figure out if it's real or not. But still, a time that I'm grateful for, and I'm happy to be here and excited to be here and to see how we close out this week. Vivian, good morning. Tage, good morning. Coco, good morning. Queen Gatlin, right? Happy to have you guys here also that are watching this via recording. Whether you're watching live or via recording, make sure you throw that one in the chat, signifying your intention to get 1% better, right? 1%, 1%, 1%. We do that over and over and over again. Consistency is king, and that is our offering to the king, right? 1%. That's all we're trying to do. Some days you hit above it, but as long as you get minimum that, you never have a 0 day. And you can say, okay, cool, I'm still moving forward. I'm still pushing. So let's continue to move forward. Let's continue to push. Like I said, I'm pumped up. So let's see what news we got going on this morning, as well as if we had any economic data or anything of note. But a very exciting time to be alive and an exciting time to be in markets. Around the clock, right? Around the gamut, whether it's crypto, everything, everyone is excited, right? Bitcoin got the halving coming up, all of that. It just feels like one of those fun, transformative times where it's really cool to be a human that's alive, right? Because there's so much that's going on. And yeah, it makes you kind of feel that mortality even more. So it's like, wow, there's a lot happening. At some point, I won't be around for it. Let me savor this experience, right? Savor what we got going on and put my best foot forward in navigating it. So our top news here: half full or half empty. Bitcoin, BTC USD, is a little ways from undergoing a once every 4 years software update in the blockchain that has historically been hyped as a positive catalyst for the highest profile cryptocurrency. The quadrennial halving event, due as soon as today, occurs when Bitcoin miners' reward for validating transactions is slashed in half, essentially reducing the rate at which new tokens are created by 50%. Now, no airdrop as such, the technical event reduces the supply of new Bitcoins entering the market, a move that could drive up the coin's price should demand remain constant or rise. And that's the key, is that you have to keep stoking demand, right? Because the issue here is that we've already seen that the government is stepping in with its own pressures based off of what it did to tickers like Mara and Riot, right? The government is stepping in, they stepped in already and is taxing these miners heavier, right? So the miners are getting taxed heavier and they're reducing the rate at which new tokens can be created. Like, so Bitcoin fundamentally is slapping the miners in the face, and then also taxes is slapping the miners in the face. At some point, it becomes not very advantageous to mine Bitcoin, right? Like, you just kind of got to look around, and that's kind of the thought process that it follows. So demand has to remain constant or rise. So it's like when you're looking at what's going on in the world, if people, kind of use Bitcoin and gold interchangeably, and they use Bitcoin more so as a store of value, when you have very volatile times like now happening, right, with persistent war in the Middle East, war in Ukraine, tension with China. When you have this tension going on, we've got tension and skirmishes in the Red Sea, right, and shipping lanes that are messed up. When you have this tension that's happening, people look for stores of value, as evidenced by the historic run up in gold that we've seen, and one that's paid us very nicely. But if people, start to turn to Bitcoin as that store of value or continue to turn to it, then that's something that, yes, helps the price because miners aren't allowed to get as much reward for mining the Bitcoin as they did previously. But at some point, it feels like, the government will always play their games, and they're kind of making it, one would seem from the outside looking in, because I'm not a crypto extraordinaire, right? So anybody feel free to hit me up and shed light on it. But it's like if they're taxed more for mining it, and then also they don't get as much of a reward for creating it. At some point, it's like, all right, I'm moving on to a new hustle, right? Why do I want to do something where I'm paid less and taxed more? Right? If I said, hey, for programmers, you're going to get paid less for the amount of work that you usually did, and you're also getting taxed more on it. You're like, bro, I'm changing careers. So that's kind of like how I'm trying to see how this gets parsed through, especially when at this point there's still not as much of a use case, right? When it comes to like where you're going out and spending Bitcoin, is just it's really about every single other, just like every other financial instrument, right? You just got to believe in it. It has value if you believe in it. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at and how I'm thinking about it and processing it. Again, if you're long term invested in Bitcoin, that's something that you've taken the time to research and you have faith in, and you've given yourself the stamp of approval, and that's all you need. But this is just kind of some observations that I've been making, and the government is always going to step in and try and do some crusty stuff in order to make sure that their best interests are kept. Kept in the forefront, and that's kind of what I feel like is at play here. But also, this is not unexpected, right? I talked about this a number of weeks ago about how heading into the halving, typically price decreases. So again, being here, right? Throw a 3 in the chat for that. Being here live for these bits and pieces of information can help you so much when it comes to making decisions, right? Because I took a lot of crypto profit a few weeks ago, knowing that okay, going into the halving, typically the price goes down, right? So I'd rather take some profits at 70 something K, and then we drop down, right? And that's the same thing with a lot of the other cryptos, all the way down to Doge, right? Even Doge had a nice run, and Doge, turning around in the same spot. So knowing these little bits of information are really important, because it also saved me mental capital, right? Going into the halving, oh no, I don't have to worry about the fact that I had a crap ton of profit in Bitcoin, and now I don't have as much profit in Bitcoin because I took it, right? I took it because I understand the dynamics behind what's going on. So again, you never, okay, something bad happens. Cool. I was aware that this could happen and I prepared for it. Right. I have adjusted my expectations and I've executed as such. So there's no, again, real need to fear what happens. If you say, I knew this was going to happen, it's like that cousin that always asks you for 20 bucks. Like, listen, man, if I didn't know that and it was my last 20 bucks, then yeah, I'm going to be angry. But if I do know that and I come in with a 20 already out of the ATM ready to give to you, yes, I lost 20 bucks, but look, I understood what it was and it is what it is. So making sure that you are on top of new information that's coming out by being here in order to manage those expectations is key, right? Because we've been really on it when it's come to Bitcoin way back, calling it out at 25K as the time to pile in again as we begin this new run up. And that was the beginning of the rocket up for Bitcoin to over 70K, right? From 25 to 70, you 3 extra money. You 3 extra money, and then you get out at a spot where, okay, great, momentary high before we go up and we put in new ones, right? But typically going into the actual halving event, it goes down, right? And shortly after the halving, and then it starts to go up in the years afterward historically. Um, so no airdrop as such. The technical event, getting back into the story, the technical event reduces the supply of new Bitcoins entering the market, a move that could drive up the coin's price should demand remain constant or rise. Given the fixed supply of Bitcoin, the halving event also reinforces scarcity by reducing the rate at which new Bitcoins are introduced into circulation. Bitcoin had already reached a record high of 73.8K in mid March as the green light for spot Bitcoin ETFs spurred strong and persistent demand for the token. Now volatility has spiraled amid the countdown to the halving, as well as jitters about higher for longer interest rates, with Bitcoin dropping some 17% since hitting its record. Overnight, the crypto was trading up 5% to around 65,000. Note that miners' profitability generally suffers after a halving as their rewards get cut in half. This fourth halving will lower the reward to 3.125 Bitcoin from the current 6.25 Bitcoin. The overall halving process is expected to end in 2140, when the number of Bitcoins in circulation is expected to reach its programmed cap of 21 million. There are currently about 19.7 million Bitcoin in circulation. So, half full or half empty? Quote, I view Bitcoin as better than 50-50 to top 100K this year, notes Logan Kane, adding that bullish analyst calls have mounted despite bears drawing comparisons to past speculative bubbles. Since there have only been 3 halvings so far and many of the all-time gains were reached in mid-March, it could also not be a given that Bitcoin tends to rise closer to the event. Seeking Alpha analyst Florian Grooms warns that Bitcoin typically weakens for about 15 to 45 days immediately before and after the halving. Isn't it nice though to get that heads up when it matters, right? Like it seems like everybody says, "Oh, Bitcoin's down." Don't worry. Typically, it goes down, 15 to 45 days immediately before and after the halving. Why do you tell me that once it's down? Why didn't you tell me that 15 days ago? Guess who did, right? This guy, us here at the Premarket Prep session. So be where you can get that info ahead of time, right? People, oh, oil typically goes up this time and gold typically goes up here, and that's why it's at all-time highs. What about when it was going up, right? Help a brother out. That's what it's about. Not telling me why it's down and not giving me that information in advance, because that doesn't help me. But yeah, that's where we are with Bitcoin. Still an exciting time, right? The halving, all that good stuff. So we'll see where things go from there and kind of how it behaves in the wake of everything that's going on, right? Because people are weighing everything with risky events happening across the board. They're like, do I go stocks? Do I go Bitcoin? Do I go gold? Do I go, I don't even know what else the next thing is up. Global news, risk premiums, mini drones, missiles from Israel elsewhere, right? Those are all questions. The reports are still murky surrounding the explosions heard across the cities of Isfahan and Tabriz in Iran. Might be butchering those, not sure. Please forgive me. But state media have played down the damage from the suspected attacks while Tehran has lifted flight restrictions. Whether the tensions will subside is anyone's guess, but it appears that stocks and crude oil have gotten over any initial shock. Just hours before the suspected retaliatory strike, S&P Global cut Israel's rating by one notch, joining Moody's Investor Service in lowering the nation's sovereign credit score. Yeah, wild. I mean, just hours before the strike, they're like, "Hey, by the way, we're cutting Israel's rating." Why? Wait 2 hours, right? It's crazy stuff. But this is what I was talking about, right? It's like we don't even know what happened. They're saying that there were explosions across different cities in Iran, and they're like, "Oh, this is a retaliation from Israel," but was it? Some people are saying it didn't happen. Some people are saying we don't know where it's from. So it's like, what the heck is going on, right? And that's just where we are right now with markets. And when you're at that space with markets, there's a few things that are important. Number one, play light. Number two, get plenty of time. Number three, hedge. If you don't want to worry about any of that stuff, then sit out, right? Because no one's forcing you to trade. Sit out for now and then get back in when you know what the heck is going on, right? But for right now, you've got Powell coming out and he's making statements about pivots. And then you have, bombs that are going off in Iran and drone armies that are flying over into Israel. There is no way to predict, what happens from this, right? The only thing you could do is manage how much you are exposed to it, give yourself plenty of time, and then hedge. If you're like, hey, I don't want to deal with any of it, I'm overwhelmed, whatever, that's cool. Cash all the way out. Nobody's got a gun to your head to be involved in these markets. But if you are in them, like your mom told you when you go into the store, act like you have some sense, right? You want to act like you have some sense. You want to make sure that you're managing your risk, all that good stuff. And if you do have significant risks out there, hedge, right? Big H, hedge. HEDGE. Nobody wants to, spend money. Oh, I don't want to hedge and I don't want puts and I don't want that. But the market's successfully bleeding down over time and all these random variables getting thrown into the equation. Not even Chat GPT could surmise or give some type of, real prognostication of what is to come. You just got to take everything in stride, and that's where we're at. But we're soldiers. We get things done, right? Humans are resilient. There's a reason why we're at the top of the food chain. You might go outside and interact with others to make you doubt that, but at the end of the day, you've got what it takes, right? We've got what it takes, and that's why this community is here to do exactly that. Triumph over and over and over again and keep it pushing despite these risk premiums where, again, we still don't know exactly what is happening over there and why these explosions are going off or who sent them. Earnings news here. See what's next. Netflix initially rose, but then pulled back 4.8% after hours on Thursday, following strong Q1 results and subscriber growth that once again surpassed expectations. The streamer saw double-digit gains amid a password crackdown, but attention settled on the fact that Netflix will stop reporting subscriber numbers entirely starting in Q1 2025. The company also issued soft Q2 guidance given last year's growth re-acceleration. Despite having different takes on the results, investing group leaders Long Player and Michael Wiggins de Oliveira both believe Netflix is no longer a growth stock. Yeah, I mean, not reporting subscriber numbers quarterly, kind of sketchy, right? But also it's like they led the charge in this space, so they're the ones that made it kind of like routine to report those sub numbers. Um, so them changing it now is kind of weird, but I guess they probably said, "Hey, now's as good of time as any," because they beat on earnings expectations. So they beat the Q1 results, subscriber growth, and their Q1 results overall beat expectations. So it's like we might as well dump the bad news in there with the good news, right? It's like feeding the dog the pill that's wrapped in cheese. Hey, we got good results, right? We met our and exceeded our subscriber growth. Bad news, we're gonna stop telling you about our subscriber growth. And that's where we're at with it. But initially a pop, then drop after hours for Disney, or excuse me, not for Disney, for Netflix, but not a really big move when you consider how Netflix has moved in the past. So I don't know if anyone will make money off of that, calls or puts. It's definitely looking like both sides got Ivy crushed because with Netflix, Netflix has made freaking 40% moves overnight before. So a 4.8% move, yeah, that's not really moving the needle for many at all. Um, but you can see here that whatever happened overnight caused futures to tank overnight, and then we've recovered to pretty much. I mean, we might open slightly green, maybe on SPY, but yeah, we're just at a point now where anything can happen overnight. You wake up and it's just like, what went on? Right? What the heck happened? So that's why you gotta play light, give yourself time, hedge. That's what it is, or sit on your hands. But that's gonna be where we're at with the way that things have developed over the course of this week, because it's been one thing after the next. If you look back on a timeline, it would feel like 3 weeks worth of information. In terms of tech news, national security, as the U.S. considers banning Chinese-owned TikTok, Beijing has ordered Apple to remove Meta's social media apps, WhatsApp and Threads, from its app store in the country. Messaging apps Telegram and Signal were also removed, citing national security concerns. Wow. Though some others were still available for download. Quote, we are obligated to follow the laws in the countries where we operate, even when we disagree, Apple said in a statement. Beijing's order is likely part of a 2023 rule that required all apps available in China to register with the government by the end of March this year or cease operating. So that's normal China MO stuff. Today's markets, this has all changed since, so no real reason for me to go over this. What else is happening? S&P 500 posts 5-day loss for the first time since October. Sky is falling, Chicken Little. Nordstrom, ticker JWN, committee to evaluate family takeover interests. Report Paramount jumps as Sony looks at joint buyout bid. Long-term mortgage rates surpassed 7% for the first time this year. Blackstone, ticker BX, in charts. Q1 capital inflows dropped sequentially. Marijuana advocacy groups call on Biden to legalize cannabis. Creditors of Venezuela's Citgo seek ConocoPhillips for bid. Then Tesla has now given up all gains made over the past year. Tesla's still getting that hammer to the dome. Schneider Electric in discussions to take control of Bentley Systems, and then Meta's Llama 3 powered AI assistant reaches more platforms. So Mark Zuckerberg, with a few exciting AI announcements yesterday on that front. But everybody, that wraps us up today, Friday, April 19th. 2024 for everything that we got going on. We'll keep our ear to the streets with what happens with Israel and Iran and Gaza and the Houthis in the Red Sea and you have Russians and Ukraine and all that, right? There's a lot of different things to keep tabs on. And it's nice for you to be able to invest a little bit of your time every morning to keep on top of those and also recognize what you should be doing with your money in the meantime, right? So we can't control all the volatilities and the crap storm that happens with everything going on. Not to mention we've got earnings season coming up with all these huge companies that will report earnings over the course of the next few weeks. So there will be a lot happening, right? And it'll be even more imperative to make sure that you make those daily investments in yourself in order to stay on the cutting edge of things and not getting swept under the current, right? So everybody have a great weekend. Let's finish today strong. And I'll see you guys on Monday for our next Premarket Prep live stream. Have a good one.